Evening, everyone. How are you? Just waiting for Ronnie and Rogers to join us. A bit older than me, so they're a bit slower. I can get away with saying that until they join. So, for anyone that missed last week, we are continuing our sort of Tales from Behind Bars, which is essentially Ronnie and Rogers' stories from when they were in jail for their various animal rights activism. Oh, Rogers here. And then since we came back for part 2. Hey, you alright? How are you?
Good evening.
There we go. Let's hear that version.
Sick of trolls and milk and meat flakes. Yeah, well, there's a few of those.
Yeah, there's quite a few of those. I mean, there's a lot of, and I mean, to be fair, sadly, the vast majority of them are young ladies, but there's a hell of a lot of people upset by my most recent video.
Which one was that?
I essentially pointed out there was a lady that visited, well, they've called it a rescue. It's quite clearly a petting zoo that's attached to a pub stroke restaurant. And
Oh,
so
yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. So the video that I shared in our WhatsApp, I stitched it basically and said it was a great example to demonstrate why appealing to animal lovers was so problematic, because the person visiting obviously considers themselves an animal lover, and the idea of visiting some animals and kind of being, I don't know, enjoying their company and enjoying the visuals of seeing them and all those kind of things doesn't conflict with her going in the restaurant and then consuming them. But also, aside from that, an animal lover wouldn't necessarily see a zoo or a petting zoo as problematic. They'd see it as a place where they can go and show their love to these animals. And so actually, from that perspective, you wouldn't even see the end of these things. I mean,
No.
an animal lover comes from the perspective of an animal user, right? So you'd still see like the safari park as a place that you'd want to keep going so that you could go and show some appreciation for the lions that you wouldn't be able to see in your daily life. They wouldn't want to necessarily abolish those things.
No, in fact, they'd probably argue that the kind of conservation
which is pretty much what's happening in the comment section of my video, yeah. Which is a perfect example of the point that I was demonstrating. Yeah, the animal lover perspective wouldn't see animals being used for entertainment necessarily as problematic. Maybe like bullfighting, but not say like animals in a circus. Not unless there was some, there's some cruelty, some mistreatment. They wouldn't see the use of them as problematic. In fact, they'd actually see it as something that they could go and enjoy.
Yeah, well, don't forget, circuses started to have little kind of zoo areas for people to go and see.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. As almost like a petting zoo as a sideshow, yeah.
Yeah, I remember going to a place called Beaumaris on the Isle of Anglesey, and they had an elephant who was, tied to the ground as they do with stakes, and kind of chains around a front leg and chains around a back leg, and all she could do really was just rock to and fro, and then all the stereotypical behaviour and that kind of stuff.
I don't think they're there anymore. I'll have to ask Ronnie, he might know. But when I first went vegan, there was a bit of a hoo-ha by one of the big circus groups that no longer used animals, still had their large cats in like a containment area in Cannock Chase. And you could actually go and like see them through the woods. You could see like that. I think they had 2 tigers and a panther, maybe. There was 3 or 4 big cats there because they weren't allowed to use them anymore in the circus. But obviously, what were they to do with them?
Yeah. Also, when a circus used to, there was a ban on so-called exotic animals in parts of North Wales, and so when the circus got to Rhyl, where they were allowed, they would then just leave them there and do the rest of North Wales and then pick them up on the way back. So another one of these things where a ban doesn't quite do what people think it's going to do.
Yeah, I can't think what the name of the group was that were kind of in charge of all of that. I'm sure Ronnie will remember though.
Well, probably Captive Animals Protection Society.
No, the name of the circus group. They were a big group that owned these animals, and essentially, when they kind of stopped them being used in circuses, that's where they lived for a number of years. And essentially, it was almost just like a farm. It was literally on the outskirts of Cannock Chase.
Right.
Because there was like people could see in the winter when all the leaves fell off the trees, you could actually see them from a road. And so there was a number of photographs that were taken and all that kind of stuff, and people didn't believe it was real until they saw it.
Yeah, the so-called winter quarters. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
So what's going on with the old man? Has he dropped asleep, do you think?
He might have fallen asleep. Yeah, we might have to begin without him if you've got a story that will fill some time. But hopefully he'll be here any second. One of the things that we didn't read out, I was rewatching our show from yesterday. Anyone that didn't watch that was a show we did on Roger's YouTube channel, which essentially talked about our experiences at the National Animal Rights March and some of the banners and the claims making and some suggestions for next year's march and all that kind of thing. But one of the comments that I did notice, who's from Persona, I think he's Vegan Lives these days in the comments, was the messaging. If we could make it consistent throughout the march, the messaging could be something very simple. So just hypothetically, if every single person that was holding a placard had a placard that said rights not welfare, that message would be incredibly strong despite how simple it was. It doesn't need to be complicated, it needs to be consistent. That's the real sort of important factor here.
Well, we covered that with the idea of...
But but it would be the idea of, instead of maybe like, I mean, I made the suggestion that we'd write our own signs, right? But I actually think with that in mind, we'd be better off pre-designing signs and handing them out.
Yeah, but we talked about that, didn't we?
Yeah, so I'm saying, but obviously I'm just saying it's like it was my suggestion about like the blank pieces of cardboard, but the blank pieces of cardboard allow all those variations, right? Well,
yeah.
So yeah. I thought that was definitely interesting.
Yeah, I'd go back to that thing about animals have rights, even though obviously we tend not to just say animals.
Well, even that, right? But it just imagine if every single person that was holding up a placard, that's what the placard said. You'd have a very united message.
Yeah, and you still have a lot of banners and stuff and all that, which would be different.
Yeah, you can still have them in the same variations in terms of size and colour, and you know how they would kind of look and all that sort of stuff. But the messaging would be consistent.
Hey, Ronnie, you're in the land of the living, are you?
I am, yeah. I got a bit delayed. I went to make a cup of tea, and you know when the kettle takes forever to boil.
I knew it would be a tea-related delay.
Oh, it's always tea-related with me, yeah, because I have to have tea to survive these days. It's like, yeah, because you're talking about I was wondering whether some, posters could be made, and I remember once helping a chap who was organising the World Day for Animals in the Laboratory march in Birmingham, and what he did was he got a load of placards actually made with the posters already on them, and distributed them to people.
Yeah, I mean, with hindsight, I think that would be a better idea than the idea of just turning up with some pens and some blank canvases.
Because they don't look great.
Because what about if someone turns up and writes, "If it bleeds, leave it alone"?
Well, the problem is they don't look great anyway. You are
absolutely right. They look better if they're already pre-made.
Yeah, they're clearer, and you want people in. You want the members of the public, along the route of the march to see the placards, and so you need them, ones that are like properly printed are much better for that purpose, aren't they? Yeah, and so that might be, there'd be a cost attached to it, obviously, but
the double-sided ones are good, aren't they? You can read.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say they should be double-sided. Yeah.
Yeah, the ones on the ones that Dean, who organised the march in Birmingham. I mean, I'm probably going back about 10 years now, quite some while. Might be even longer than that. The ones he did were double-sided.
Yeah. And the good thing about it is, obviously, if they were very simplistic, let's just say for argument's sake, they said animals have rights, then they wouldn't be exclusive to NAM, right? So these people could loan them out or make use of them for some other outreach or whatever. They could be used throughout the year. They're not just like a one-off and then they go back in the cupboard for 12 months.
Well,
That messaging is kind of across the board consistency, isn't it? Yeah.
These ones were on sticks. They were on sticks, kind of stapled to sticks. And like most of them got given back at the end of the march. People didn't take them because, a lot of the people would have problems taking them home with them. So then I think that they would then used on future marches. Used again. So that's an idea. They could be used year after year.
We were talking about NARM having something to do during the year. Well, a fundraiser for that would be quite good.
A crowdfunder for that would be good. Yeah, you could say we want to, provide people with placards that we understand some people can't bring them, for instance, and so I think crowdfunder for that, and that would be a way of.
Yeah, and I mean, literally, it would be. These aren't like non-NARM specific signs, I say. So, like the Earthlings project or whatever that operate 3 days a week. There's no reason why they couldn't make use of them too, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah,
I think if anyone wants them, if people, you'd say to people, look, somebody could announce that. I think what you do, and especially if there were going to be speakers and the system is set up at the beginning, for stuff, for some stuff to be happening before the march, through the loudspeakers, that could be announced that we've got a load of placards here. Please come and take one if you need one. And if you don't want to keep the placard, then please bring it back afterwards. But if you've got your own events you're doing locally, then you're
Well, the other thing on that note as well is you could potentially have T-shirts made that have a similar message. So obviously. There's only going to be so many placards that X people can carry and all those things, but everyone could wear a T-shirt, right? And then you're a walking banner, and again, those could be like double-sided.
You could do it. I mean, there's two ways of doing that. You could either have the T-shirts there for people to put on, or you could have a system where you've got the T-shirts, sometime you produce the T-shirts sometime before the march. And then people. They could be mailed out to people either.
And again, if the messaging was very simple, again, say it just said animals have rights, those T-shirts could be worn to any event, even to the shops, right? They're not like a one-off that says NARM 2025 and that,
Yeah, well, it's rather like the National Animal Rights Day. Their slogan is our planet, theirs too.
Yeah. As long as the messaging is kind of simple and consistent. This is the kind of stuff that's not specific to that one day of the year. Because that's one of the things that I've noticed about some of these other events like Camp Out and stuff. You can get a T-shirt that's like Camp Out 2024. Yeah, but that's like, it's got an expiry date, right?
Yes.
Whereas if it just said go vegan, then it hasn't, and you can wear it forever. And I
think what you could do is, I mean, some people might like to have a T-shirt that kind of said National Animal Rights March on it somewhere, as a big, like it would be a kind of memento of that.
Well, you could have it as a badge and then with the slogan underneath, couldn't it?
You could have a small thing that said that, and then the
like
slogan
a football shirt. You've got a
that would, and then people would have that. They'd say, well, this is a memento of when I went on the march, but they could wear it the next year, couldn't they, as well?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I think that's probably some of the best suggestion to have. Things that aren't going to be one day specific, right? So even if you want to put some stickers on some of these things for the day, the fact that the most of these like T-shirts, banners, slogans, placards, all can be reused for other events. Because I mean, after NARM this year, on the Sunday, for anyone that was still around, there was some activism that went on the Sunday afternoon near Camden. So straight away, 24 hours later, those banners and placards could be used again.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I think that would be good. I think,
and that would also improve the claims making of some of these other little grassroots groups, right? Naturally.
Yes. Oh yes. I think it would be. Yeah, I think it would be great. But it's obviously something that probably you'd have to start almost planning kind of straight away, because someone's got to design these things, haven't they? It may be a very simple design, but nevertheless. I mean, obviously, there's some good designing goes on in connection with NARM, because, the banner that banner has. There's already been some T-shirts done, hasn't there, and banners and stuff. So there's, obviously there's people that are adept at that type of thing.
Yeah, and exactly that. Yeah, and it's once these things have been designed, they're very easy to distribute around so that others can get their own made with the same thing and all that kind of stuff. I think that is something everyone should kind of focus on going forward. That our messaging is kind of as similar to one another's as possible, so that we all kind of are saying the same things. Because otherwise, it's creating so much confusion within people that don't necessarily have the care or the passion or the interest to look at all those nuances and realize where the truth is. They just want the simple stuff given to them in a very simple way.
I think the other thing is like the value of repetition. In other words, you've got a march going through the streets of London. Yeah.
It's basic principle of marketing and advertising, isn't it? Repetition.
People are looking at a whole load of different slogans. Whereas one that is repeated very often, and where they see lots of people carrying that, it's going to stick more in the minds of the public, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Same as obviously, it's not even just that. So like, if you're a journalist and you take 200 pictures of the march, how many are getting printed? 1, 2. So if you've got 200 different banners in every one of those photos, it's a lottery which banner's going to appear in the media. But if you've got all of the banners consistent, it don't matter how many photos he takes, the photo he picks is going to have the messaging that we want the public to see.
Yeah. And also
I think the overall positives of that are enormous, not just obviously on the day, but if it gets printed in the Sun newspaper, for example, then the messaging that they see isn't, be kind to animals.
I mean, unfortunately, I'm not sure the march is big enough. So
this year's march definitely was in one of the papers. Sadly, the picture was what? In fact, you tell me what the picture was.
The picture.
What do you think was the only moment of that march that got put in the newspaper?
Was it something about loving animals?
It was worse than that. It was a photograph of the man in handcuffs stood by the side of Canada Goose.
Oh, blimey! Oh, yes.
Yeah, that was the photograph that was in the paper.
So all these people are like these kind of hooligans that try and break into the steakhouse.
That wasn't a photograph that I saw. No, the photograph that I saw was the guy from We the Flea with his hands handcuffed.
Yes, I mean I've seen that.
Yeah,
photo.
The thing is, though, Andy, if that guy hadn't have done that, he probably wouldn't get any coverage at all. That's
you are absolutely correct, Roger. If that wouldn't have happened, and that man wasn't apprehended, it wouldn't have got.
Yeah, that's right. Because the trouble about London is, first of all, there isn't really any local newspaper that covers London in the same way that you get local newspapers in other cities and towns, because London is kind of so big. You've got local newspapers that cover the kind of outlying suburbs of London, but right in the middle of London, the only newspaper that's in any way local to that is the Evening Standard, and the Evening Standard contains loads of national news.
Well, that's another thing that could be done. During the run up to the march, you could write.
I mean, as far as I'm aware, there wasn't a press release. That's something that could absolutely change. Yeah,
is it absolutely necessary? Right, and I know this is possibly may make it more difficult for some people to get to the march. Is it absolutely necessary that it has to take place in London?
No. I mean, I hate the place. You've got my vote.
Because you see, what happens, the World Day for Animals in Laboratories, and these days that's a much smaller march, but sadly the one in Liverpool earlier in the year, there was only 200 people at it.
Yeah, in terms of where you'd want it ideally slap bang in the middle of the country. But the problem is these people don't want to travel from London. That's the issue usually. Everyone else always has to travel to London, but no one from London ever wants to travel anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of people. You probably find that there was quite a big percentage of the people on that march were from London and the South East.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So it's always the problem. You can never get people from the south to travel north usually.
No, let's just say, I don't know, tomorrow there was a decision made that they were going to host next year's march in the middle of Birmingham, for example. You wouldn't get 3,000 people there. You certainly wouldn't improve on the numbers that they had this year.
Yeah, I think it's unlikely, sadly, and it'd be nice to see.
It would be. I think you'd be
Birmingham
struggling at like 1,000. You know, I think
You make it easier for people in Yorkshire and Scotland, though.
It would be
easy for them,
but all the people down south, I suppose, wouldn't come, and a lot of the London people wouldn't come. So you'd basically you might get the same if you were very lucky and it was advertised extremely well. But I suppose the other thing is that it's because a lot of these groups too have hubs in London that they come, like some of the bigger organisations and all that sort of stuff, and like I think you would definitely see a huge loss in numbers.
Yeah, sadly, I think that's true. I really do.
It's a shame, but you would, yeah.
And I suppose in terms of public education, you know that you're going to have a large number of members of the public being marched in London. If you go down Oxford Street, you go down all these busy, the busy shopping area, and you wouldn't get quite that. You wouldn't get quite that many. You wouldn't get quite as much as that in other cities. To be honest, I mean, one thing that used to happen was there was the march in London, which at one time attracted 10,000 people, but there were also people organised regional marches. I know there was one in Birmingham. I think there was one in Cardiff. There was one in Swansea. There was one in Bristol, and I think maybe some of the other cities were not on the same Saturday as NARM, but on other Saturdays throughout the summer, and they didn't attract a massive number. I went on one in Cardiff where there was about a couple of hundred people, but it was good. It was very, very educational for members of the public in the city. Good banners and placards, and a rally afterwards and speeches and stuff. Whether anything like that could be encouraged, or whether it would be felt that might detract from the big event in London, in that people would. But it would also enable people to. I'm not saying that the same people that organise NARM organise the regional ones.
I absolutely hear what you're saying. Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that, obviously, again, it falls into the realms of organisation. But one of the things that would also definitely help the numbers is if there were some means of coaches that were put on, even if they were kind of like, look, it goes from, I don't know, Birmingham to Coventry to Worcester. So it's got 3 big areas that it covers. It's going to take you 5 or 6 hours to get there, but these are the areas that it covers, and fill them that way. That's something, but again, that's going to need someone to organise it and put a deposit down and all this other stuff. That's where the issue lies. But these are things that we've essentially got 12 months to encourage people to do. But we still need to have that in them to do it.
It's something that could be discussed on the NARM page, the NARM group.
Yeah, absolutely. Same as I think another thing that worked the first year, which I think you made a good point that it was because of the rail strikes. But if there was more kind of encouragement for those that have got large enough houses to open them up for a night and that sort of stuff too, even if it was like camping in someone's back garden. That would also make, because obviously accommodation is very expensive too. So this is something that it would make people's lives much easier if they could travel down one day and go home the next.
Well, especially people could travel in
long distances. North. Yeah, one of the people that I spoke to came from Cumbria, and they literally had to leave the moment that Roger's speech finished. That's a long day.
There were some people from Northeast.
I spoke to them as well.
They're up in, I don't know, Newcastle way, I would think, round about that.
Yeah. And Anna, they left pretty much the same time, didn't they? Because otherwise we're talking about a long way. So if people like that, for example, were given a big back garden where they could put up like a 10-man tent for the night, that would obviously make their lives much easier. It would mean they haven't got to fork out a huge amount of money in accommodation, and all of a sudden X amount of people can suddenly come. So I think these are all things that can be looked at going forward, and definitely a kind of all-round campaign over the year to promote it, as opposed to just the last couple of months.
Because I think if all these things are discussed, on the NARM group and the NARM page, it would keep that. It would mean that's more in it keeps that in everyone's eye more, doesn't it? Keeps it in their head about the march, and it means that the page and the group are likely to get more views in general,
Yeah,
doesn't it?
absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I suppose that's our introduction.
Yes, people are waiting to hear about some funny prison stories.
They're waiting to hear if you've got any shitty stories or any stories about trousers.
Well, I think I told the
You
trousers
told
one.
the trouser one, but no,
Taylor the Visit
there's
trousers.
always a different way that you can bring innuendo in some way.
Don't encourage him, Andy. Don't encourage him. He doesn't need it.
It's not a show without a smutty joke from Ronnie.
Oh, blimey! Yeah, no, I mean there's bound to be one along the road. Don't worry. So where are we going to start? Are we going to start this kind of historically?
Well, I've got a list here. I've got the frog story, the overheard conversation about you being a big gangster.
Yeah.
We can start with the frog story.
See, a lot of those are from my last prison sentence, but I was trying to think if there's anything funny. I mean, it's something that kind of was really bizarre.
Ronnie, were you the general in the second prison?
No, I only became a general in my final trial.
Right, okay.
When
So you hadn't been promoted in the first couple of stints.
I was just an ordinary foot soldier in the But the first time I went to prison, and I think, people listen to this might think, what the fuck are these people talking about? The context of all this is to do with the Animal Liberation Front. And the precursor to the Animal Liberation Front is a group called the Band of Mercy, but it kind of became the Animal Liberation Front.
You said it. You said the word.
I said the word band. Band is band, isn't it? No, yeah. Mercy's band. Yeah, but the name was changed, and so we've kind of really took it. It kind of is really all the Animal Liberation Front, which was an organisation that took direct action for animal liberation, and which consisted of rescuing animals from various establishments where they were oppressed, such as laboratories and hens from battery farms and, all sorts really. And then also causing damage to these, to premises involved in the exploitation and oppression of other animals. And obviously that was activity that was against the law. And so really quite a large number of people ended up being put in prison, including myself and Roger. So this is kind of that's the sort of context for anyone that kind of doesn't really know what we're talking about. And it started off with me. I mean, I was sent to jail in 1975 on a number of charges, including myself and another guy, including trying to destroy a animal research laboratory which was being built in Milton Keynes, seriously damaging two boats that were going to be used for...
You were sent to Alcatraz, weren't you, Ronnie?
Getting the baby seals. Well, I was on a kind of... I was in a prison called... Because Alcatraz, the reason why Alcatraz was where it was, because it was an island, wasn't it? It was an island prison, so they reckon that made it harder for people to escape.
In fact, the prisons on the Isle of Wight were hard to get off as well.
The Isle of Wight, but I was in a prison on my first sentence called the Verne, which is on Portland Bill, and for most of the time that is cut off from the mainland. There's a causeway that's flooded most of the time, and so that was like a kind of semi-island, and that was the way. And that prison was originally there to house French prisoners when Britain was at war with France.
So you really were on a mini Alcatraz then?
Yeah, so it was like, it had been, and there was another prison on there for young prisoners elsewhere on that kind of, on that sort of kind of island down there. It's down near Weymouth, down that way. And on that sentence, what was really strange, when I first got put in prison, in, I think it was August of 1974, and what happened was myself and, I can say his name, a guy called Cliff Goodman, he was the guy arrested with me. We got caught on a place in Oxfordshire that bred sort of small animals, rats, mice, perhaps guinea pigs and rabbits as well, for laboratories, and we'd kind of crept in the back of this place looking at what damage we could cause, and we were seen by a security guard, and the police came. We were arrested. They found lots of evidence in the car about other things we'd done, and we each ended up, at the end of the day, we each got a 3-year sentence. But when we first got arrested, we were put on remand. We didn't get bail straight away. We got bail after 10 days. So we were in prison for 10 days, and we were on remand in Oxford prison. And so sadly, we weren't put in a cell together. And I was, and this was like really weird, obviously it's a kind of shock to the system. The first time I'd ever been in jail. And I was put in a cell with this guy, I think it was a burglar. And he was, I had a foam mattress on my bed, but he had a horsehair mattress. Because what they were doing, the original mattresses in prisons had been horsehair, stuffed with horsehair, and they were phasing them out and replacing them with foam mattresses. So I was really pleased I had a foam mattress. Otherwise, I'd probably complained, having to lie on a horsehair mattress. But he was, I was talking away to him, and he got out a Rizzler cigarette paper, and he started pulling a load of horsehair out of his mattress and rolling it up in the Rizzler. And he started smoking it. And he said, I specifically asked to have a horsehair mattress because, you can smoke it. I've run out of tobacco, so I'm smoking the horsehair. I thought, bloody hell. And it really,
Ronnie, going to this idea
about that,
of
Ronnie, is like hair. It smells and tastes, and surely vile.
it made a terrible smell. The smell was awful.
Yeah.
It was just smoking something. He was desperate to smoke something.
Yeah, but you'd be better off picking up like dust off the floor than hair, surely.
Yeah, I know. And it kind of was just, and that was within just a few minutes of being put in a prison cell. There was this guy smoking the horsehair.
Good first experience.
It's like quite a kind of freaky start to my prison career, really.
World within a world, isn't it? But the thing is, if the entire prison system had horsehair mattresses, where did they get it all from?
Well, you see, from I don't know whether it's from
in this nation of animal lovers and all that.
Yeah, they get it from the horse slaughterhouses.
Yeah, I mean, there's, I mean, the racing industry, like, I think it could quite likely be about 10,000 horses a year.
It's okay though, because they use every part.
So yeah, but I mean, you must be only talking about the tails and the manes, surely.
For the most part, yeah. Most horses are very short-haired. I mean, unless we're talking about a particular type. I mean, I can't remember what their, like the cuffs around their hooves are called, but sometimes they're quite long-haired as well. The bits at the bottom of the legs. I can't remember what the horsey name is for those, but yeah, you are talking about specific areas, aren't you?
Yeah, but obviously I mean, that's a hell of a lot of horsehair to stuff all those mattresses.
Well, that's it. Well done. Yeah,
that was kind of what it was. I mean, I think the majority of the mattresses were foam, and I mean later on that they were all of the mattresses was foam. That on my later prison sentences, all the horsehair ones had gone, but they obviously at one time they probably all the horsehair, I'd imagine.
Yeah, so I mean, it's an entire prison system. That's a lot. Actually, talking about remand, right? I always found this really, really weird, because when you're on remand with people, they're always complaining that they're innocent, and I mean, you never find a guilty person in prison on remand, and and so I always remember that during the exercise, or even kind of going backwards and forwards from the wings to the visits and stuff, the nonces, and that means that's a slang phrase for sex offenders, and they were on a special, what was it called, 45, wasn't it, Ronnie?
Well, it was Rule 43 at the time.
43, yeah.
And it's now Rule 45 because they've obviously put in a couple of new rules somewhere, and it's now Rule 45. It was Rule 43.
Okay. Well, in Liverpool, they're called beasts, right?
Yeah.
The beasts, yeah. And but they had to protect them in case they come into contact with the general prison population. Even if they came into contact with other people on remand, these ones were in danger, right? And I used to think, well, you're complaining that you're not guilty, but you never assume that the nonces are not guilty.
No.
It was a weird kind of thing where they were just like fair game because of who they were.
Yes.
And they didn't ask any nice questions like, were they actually guilty or not? whilst insisting that they themselves were innocent.
Yeah, that's right. I remember. This is jumping ahead to when we were on remand in Hull Prison, and that was on my final sentence. There was a vicar. A vicar was remanded to Hull Prison, charged with he'd been molesting young children. Kind of they were supposed to be going to him for like religious instruction, and he was charged with molesting them. And these were children 7 or 8 years old, that kind of age, and obviously. So there was huge hatred against him, and he was kept in a sort of segregated part of the landing, but people would shout at you. You could still see him going along, but on this part of the landing that was fenced off, and the prisoners would all shout at him and that. And one day when we were all out on exercise, he was being escorted to a visit, with other prison officers. And it was walking along the side of one of the wings of the prison, and it was like the wings of the prison go up. There's about four floors, about 4 stories, and the prisoner dropped out of a window at the very top story of the prison. A prisoner dropped one of those really heavy batteries that you used to get, the big batteries. Dropped out, and it just. Well, obviously aiming to hit this vicar on the head, and it just missed his head. It just kind of flew past his face. But this guy was aiming to, and I mean that would have really kind of seriously injured him from that height, a heavy battery like that. And that was the kind of thing that would happen. The prisoners were all out, and he actually died. He actually died of a heart attack in the prison. That vicar, he never went to trial. He was found dead.
It would have been a stressful time. Do you remember that? I mean, this is still Hull as far as I remember. But there was, because you had to go down to get your food. You had to go down onto the ground floor, and then go along to one end of the wing, and there was all the food and all that set up. But then there was a kind of side bit which went down again, and that was the 43s. But they were cordoned off and fenced off and locked off and all the rest of it. And I do remember that the screws every now and again accidentally forgot to, lock the gate, and so everybody used to pile in there.
Yeah, well, there was once again regarding that vicar. I was in a cell in Hull with a Rasta. He was a white Rasta guy. He was part of the Rastafarian community in, Sheffield or somewhere like that. But he's a white guy that kind of, and he was vegetarian because he said it's part of our religion that, you have to be vegetarian. You should be. Rasta should be vegetarian, he was saying. So anyway, what happened is he went on a visit at the same time as this vicar had a visit, right? And the vicar was supposed to be being guarded by prison officers. But the prison officers deliberately left him alone. And this guy, the Rasta guy that I was in a cell with, his name was Phil. He attacked the vicar. He knocked the vicar out, punched him, knocked him out. And that day, the vicar had a visit from the bishop, you see. And when the vicar came round and everything, he went and, and obviously there were complaints put in. And this Phil got moved temporarily to another prison, you see. But when he came back to Hull, a load of the prison officers were giving him tobacco and giving him other things and saying, well done for punching the vicar. So, there was that kind of thing. And, obviously collusion, between the prison officers and inmates to kind of have a go at these people.
That's a euphemism, isn't it? Punching the vicar?
No, beating the bishop, you mean?
Well,
yeah, you lasted about 15 minutes. I knew it would have to come.
so you're punching the vicar and beating the bishop, okay?
Beating the bishop's the euphemism. Not that I've ever done that. Anyway.
So is that the kind of thing that would be like the norm if you got someone that was a particularly disgusting individual? Would
the prison officers
would look the other way? Or,
yeah, they'd leave like as Roger said, they'd leave doors open. In this case, they left him alone. Because they knew that he'd be attacked, and indeed he was.
How I mean, obviously, I suppose no one really checks, but like, how would they get away with that from their job's perspective? Like, haven't they got like duties that they're obviously not fulfilling when those things occur?
Well, there's lots of mistakes that are made, you know.
They'd all cover up for one another, wouldn't they?
Yeah, that's true. Very
And
true.
it would kind of, the vicar complained, and then the bishop complained.
I mean, I'm not defending this guy by any means.
No. But the bishop complained, and so they moved the vicar they moved the guy Phil who attacked him to another prison,
Right.
and said to the bishop, "Look, we've moved the guy out of the prison. We've disciplined him." They didn't really discipline. They just moved him to another prison till it all quieted down, brought him back, and then gave him loads of rewards. I think he came back in the cell with me, and he had all this tobacco and chocolate and everything what they'd given him. And so there we are.
Incentivise justice, yeah.
Incentivise, yeah. So
It's all about impression management, really, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true.
yeah, I think that's very true. But I'm trying to think if there's anything else of interest on my first.
Well, we can jump about. I want to know about the frog. I do.
Yeah, I like
what happened was on my basically because in my third trial, in order to give me a longer sentence, they categorised me as the general. They gave everyone ranks because this was a big conspiracy trial once again to do the Animal Liberation Front. And by this time, I was a press officer of the animal. I was the kind of national press officer. Roger was the northern press officer, and there were other people involved in the trial. You know, some of the people were activists, and Viv, who edited the ALF Supporters Group newsletter, she was on trial as well. Big conspiracy trial. And I was labelled as a general. I think you were a lieutenant, weren't you, Roger? They gave you the rank of lieutenant. And they gave other people foot soldiers.
Lieutenant or lieutenant?
Lieutenant, I don't. Well, it's probably here. It's lieutenant, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah.
The lieutenant's USA, isn't it? So anyway, so and I ended up getting a 10-year sentence. But that reputation kind of followed me into prison, and it kind of, I got the reputation as somehow as being some kind of gang leader, you know. And so I had what happened, and then there's various incidents where related to that, and one of them was that what they used to do. The final prison I was in was a place called Channings Wood, which is down near Newton Abbot in Devon. It's a semi-open prison where there was a big fence around it, but within the prison itself, you had quite a lot of freedom to move around. And what they used to do was they used to go out on Dartmoor. The prison officers used to take a group of prisoners, and obviously they'd probably have to be the more trusted prisoners, for camping weekends on Dartmoor, you see. And they always used to ask me if I wanted to go, and I always refused. I said, the last thing I want to do is camp on Dartmoor with a load of prisoners. Do you know what I mean? It's bad enough being in the prison with them, but camp on Dartmoor with them in a bloody tent. So I always used to refuse. But a lot of the prisoners were very enthusiastic for this because, you know, they found prison life boring. It'd be more exciting to be camping on Dartmoor for a couple of nights. So anyway, there was one of these camping trips to Dartmoor, and afterwards, like on the Monday, I had this prisoner come in my cell, and he said, "Listen, I've got something to tell you, Ronnie." He said, "This guy, you know, he named one of the other prisoners. He said, well, he was on the camping trip, you know, with us, like, and he said he tried to stamp on a frog. We were walking along, and there was a frog hopping on the path in front of us, and he tried to stamp on the frog." I said, "Oh, right." I said, "Right, that's right." I said, he gets out quite soon, doesn't he? He's released quite soon. And this other guy said, "Oh, yeah." I said, "Well, I shall put the word out to the boys then. They'll be ready for when he's released. I'll tell the boys." So anyway, this guy went away. And a couple of hours later, the prisoner that was meant to have stamped on the frog came to see me in a terrible state. And he said, "Ronnie, please, Ronnie, let me talk to you. Let me explain. I didn't, please, I didn't try to stamp on the frog. That's just not true. I was walking along and the frog just jumped in front of me, and I avoided the frog. I did avoid the frog. It wasn't. I didn't deliberately try to stamp on a frog. No, that's completely untrue.
Typical, isn't it? Everybody tries to blame the frog.
Yeah. Every time I played the frog.
Of course.
And I said, are you sure that's true? I said, because that's not what I heard. That isn't what I heard. He said, no, it's true. I swear you're right. I swear you. I said, right. He said, please call the boys off. Please. And I said, well, I'll tell you what. I said, all right. I said, just this once. I said, I'll put the word out to the boys and I'll call it off. I said, but if I hear you doing anything at all, the rest of the time you're in here, anything at all against any animal, the boys are back on again. They'll be back on. And he said, no, I'm not. I won't do anything. I promise. And he was going, thank you, like that.
Well, I hope in a weird way though that seed was planted,
Well,
even if it was like via the threat of violence. It was.
I know, but it was just mad. It was just kind of crazy. They thought that I had all these kind of a big gang of boys.
Maybe 30 years later, when he goes for a walk in a park, he's terrified of encountering a frog.
Well,
The man never left his house again.
never went out again. No, he
Sits there at the
stayed in
window
one
with his
room.
binoculars, waiting for men with balaclavas to turn up. Like,
I know. It's just, but I had that kind of thing quite a lot.
I like the flex.
The other thing about prison is everything gets exaggerated because it's the prisoners are so bored that you get stories go round and they get embellished, and so out of
Was there any other instance of like a similar thing where people came to you to complain about like other?
No, not really like that. But there were similar things where people thought they thought I was a big gang leader. I mean, there's one. What happened in Channings Wood was that it was when it began that prisoners were allowed to make phone calls. You see, and there was a pay phone installed in the prison, and it was one of those that was operated by a card. I mean, I don't know how many people remember when in the days of the phone boxes you could use a phone card, couldn't you? Buy a phone card and use that instead of money. Well, there was these special phone cards that had that, they had like the HMP symbol on them that you could buy, and you could book a slot. You could book one slot a night to make a phone call, and you got a 10-minute slot to make a phone call, you see, with this phone card. And because I knew lots of people and I wanted to speak to my family as well, I'd book a call every night, you see, and I'd be, make a 10-minute call to someone or other, see. And anyway, I was walking along the corridor in the prison one day, and this guy came up to me. He said, Ronnie. He said, is it true that you can have people killed? And I said to him, how did you find out about that? I said, how did you find out about that? I said, don't tell people. I said, I'm doing 10 years already. I said, I don't want people to know about that. I said, don't tell anyone about that. I said, how did you find that out? He said, well, someone told me, or was a rumour going around. I said, well, don't you spread that. I said, God, I don't want any more. I've got 10 years. And then he said to me, he said, how do you have them killed then? How do you have them killed? And I said, I just make a phone call. And then he said to me, is that why you're always on the phone?
Makes sense, yeah. Well, maybe why you've got round that you knew the Karate Boys. I mean, they were obviously quite capable. So.
On the hunt tabs.
And Roger obviously had the skinhead, so between the pair of you could make some tools.
Yeah, and the other one was the story of the. I don't know whether I've told this on you before. Maybe I've told them one about the butcher, where I was.
What were you alleged to slash him to bits?
So, yeah. What happened was I was sat. There was a prison library at Channings Wood, in the grounds of the prison, and I I'd gone and got some books, and it was a nice sunny day, and I was sat down outside the library against the library wall, reading this book, and there was a path, a few yards away, and there was a couple of prisoners walking along that path, and I think they obviously didn't realise I could overhear them, and one of them said to the other that little guy with glasses, sat there, what do you think he's in? What do you think he's in for? And the other guy sort of took a look at me and said, "Oh, he looks quite brainy. He's got glasses. He looks quite brainy. I reckon he's done some big fraud. I'd say he's done a big fraud. That's what it is." And the other bloke said, "No, no." He said, "He's a dangerous little bastard. Dangerous bastard. He slashed a butcher to pieces. He cut a butcher right up, chopped him right to pieces. You see." And the other guy said, "Really, he's only a little, no, he's dangerous, he's dangerous." And so somehow, because I was in for some sort of animal rights related thing, it got round that what I'd done was I'd cut a butcher up. And that was obviously they'd heard this from somewhere.
I mean, it would be an ironic way to go.
It kind of would be. And I just didn't say anything. I think I'll let them believe it. If they won't believe, let them believe I can have people killed.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose in some essences it probably helped to keep you safe too,
Yeah, I know, but that's what it's like. You just get everything, is twisted and exaggerated because, I suppose, because of bored. I was never bored. I mean, I spent my time studying and keeping fit. I was never bored in prison. But a lot of them are.
Any flyers in prison?
Sorry?
Did you give out any flyers?
Not flyers, but I gave magazines out. I got.
You were still doing outreach even in jail?
Yeah, I got animal rights magazines sent in. I used to give them out to people, to read.
Well, I said last week that we got lots of Slaughter the Innocents books in to give out.
Yeah.
I think I did ask this last week, but was there any kind of like successful conversions or people that you kind of would still know that have gone vegan from prison?
It's hard to say. I mean, there was that case of the guy that on one of my prison sentences, I had this discussion with a guy about veganism, and he was adamant, "No, I'd never go vegan. I love my meat."
I remember you telling that.
Then on a subsequent prison sentence, he came up to me and he'd actually gone vegan a few weeks after that because he said, "I thought about it," but because I didn't argue with him, I wasn't nasty to him. I just kind of tried to, and in the end, because one of us had to go, we just had to agree to differ and just end the conversation. But it actually, although at the time he strongly disagreed with me, it obviously had what I'd said obviously had an effect on him, and he thought about it later. And I think it's one of these things that kind of, when you speak to people, it's like when you do outreach in the street. You're not going to get someone just suddenly say, "Right, I'm going vegan. You've convinced me here at the stall and I'm going to go vegan." You don't really get that. I mean, obviously you plant a seed and people go away and think about it.
Yeah, and I was about to say, it shows the power, though, that planting one seed can actually have when someone goes along. Obviously in jail you've got a lot of time to think, right?
Yes.
So in everyday life, people might get distracted by cooking the kids' dinner and all sorts of different things, but it does just demonstrate how powerful one thought, one seed can honestly be if someone actually goes away and chews on it for a little while.
Yeah, I think there were one or two that said, "Right, I'm going vegan," and they went on the vegan diet.
You got a question about how long you were in prison. It's altogether over the three. It was about 10 years, wasn't it?
It was 9 years. Added all up, it come to about 9 years. Yeah, I mean the third one was the longest. That was 6 years and 8 months. But then I did.
But you were sentenced to 10, though, weren't you? So
it was 10 years, and you see what happened. What happened at the time? It might have changed a little bit now, but at the time, you did 2/3 of the sentence, and so you'd be released after 2/3 of the sentence, and that remaining 1/3 of the sentence was kind of that was used as a deterrent against you misbehaving in prison, because if people so-called misbehaved in prison, they would have to serve more of the time right up until, you see, if I'd gone round causing loads of trouble in prison, they could have made me serve up to the full 10 years.
It's a clever thing to do, really, isn't it? They give you 10, and then they say, right, you've got to do at least 6. But if you're not careful, you'll have to do the 10. So it's quite a handy little routine for them, really, I suppose.
And there was another early release scheme, like where you could be released after 1/3 of the sentence, something called parole, where you'd be for the you'd be released after the first third of your sentence, and then for the second third of your sentence, you'd be on probation.
People know the parole thing from Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah. And on my first sentence, I actually got that. I got 3 year sentence. I was released after 12 months. because I'd never been in prison before. In fact, I'd never been convicted of anything before, and neither had Cliff, who was in prison with me. So we were released, and we didn't, we were of good behaviour in prison, so to speak. So we were.
Here's a question for you, Ronnie. Did you ever get any of the other cons being really surprised that you weren't paid? Because I got that quite a lot.
Yeah, well, and also because what they couldn't get their head is, see, most guys that are in prison are in for crimes to do with personal gain, theft or burglary or robbery, and then you get ones, then there are violence cases, and even up as far as murder as well. But most of it is like, kind of, I suppose, quite petty burglary and theft and stuff like that. It's all
so they assumed that we got paid, didn't they?
Well, they yes, they did. They either assumed that or that. You see, I had on my second prison sentence, I was in prison for some of us we raided a place that bred animals for experiments, and they bred they bred mice. And this was in sort of southeast London, kind of Surrey area, and we went there and we damaged the vehicle they had there, and we broke in and we rescued I think it was 120 mice, you see, and I ended up being done for that and been done for burglary and criminal damage, and I got a 12-month sentence. And when I when I was asked about what I was in for, I told them that the immediate reaction was, oh, they were valuable mice, were they? They were rare mice, valuable mice, and you were going to sell them.
Yeah, they were gold mice.
They couldn't understand someone doing something that wasn't for personal gain.
I can't understand how you could even think that there was a possibility that there was some mice that were that valuable.
Well, because they couldn't understand, because that was the only thing.
You think it's easier for their brain to compute that than to just think it was because of
Yeah, well, because I hadn't explained that. I said, they said, what are you in for? I said, criminal damage and burglary. What was the burglary? What did you steal? 120 mice. 120 mice. Well, rare mice. You're going to sell the rare mice. Straight away they're thinking that.
They might have thought it was slang for some kind of gold ingot or something.
Well, because I think their minds couldn't compute someone. And when I explained, they were going for experimentation, there was a lot of sympathy. They said, "Oh, fair play. You shouldn't be in here. You shouldn't be in here for that." You know what I mean? There's a lot of sympathy.
I would agree. Yeah.
But of course, first of all, they found it like really weird that somebody wouldn't be in for, like doing something for their own financial gain.
Yeah.
One thing I remember.
I suppose, they wouldn't even think about it, would they, in any way, shape, or form?
No.
Yeah, one thing I remember is how practical they were about problem solving. Because when they found out about me and they asked a few questions about the ALF and what's it all about and all that kind of stuff, and then and then they might ask about the movement, and you'd talk about demos and all this kind of stuff and all that, and they were much more practical because they said, well, look, if you want to stop vivisection, then you grab the vivisectors and you tie them to a tree and you break their hands with a baseball bat, and then they won't do it again. So they actually thought that we were pissing about, not solving the problem in the way that they would.
Yeah, I think, yes. I mean, not that they would really do that in those circumstances, but I suppose, quite a few of them, if someone had crossed them in some way, they might be doing stuff.
Well, one of them said to me that if I could get 50 quid together, he could arrange for a vivisector to have their legs broken.
Yeah. I mean that. That might possibly be true. But I even used to get that on street stalls, because there was a time when I did street stalls, anti-vivisection street stalls, right in the days when I first started doing that. And I'd have people come up to me and said, "What are you pissing about with a street stall for? You should go and shoot these bastards. Why don't you go and shoot these bastards?" And
then we'd be going, no, you can't do that. And we're supposed to be the ones who are the violent ones.
Well, I'd say to them, why don't you go and shoot them? Oh no, I can't do and shoot them. I can't do it. I got this and that and the other. But why don't you shoot them? They wanted They wanted me to be done for murder. Do you know what I mean? And suggesting that, and so I used to even get that from people on the street as well.
Well,
I've never had that. I'm obviously doing something wrong.
yeah. Well, I mean, one thing
it was to do with animal experimentation, I suppose, and that might be, the kind of emotional reaction of people.
One thing I learned doing stalls, and it ties in with my sociology, is the fact that people had this kind of mental category of protester or demonstrator and stuff. And so people would come up and they would complain that you weren't doing anything, or you weren't doing what they thought you should be doing. They would often do that. And we've probably all had that. And I used to have a standard thing by going, oh, well, I'm really interested in what you're talking about. Have you got any leaflets or have you got a petition or what's the score? And they go, no, I haven't. Kind of thing, and it occurred to me that they were kind of saying, well, look, I'm not a demonstrator, but you are.
Why don't you care about this issue more?
Yeah, it's just that you're not demonstrating about the right thing. But I'm not demonstrating about anything.
I suppose one of the most common versions of that, although it is obviously related, is the amount of times that people have come up to me, especially when I've been doing street activism, and gone, oh, you want to go and stand outside a halal slaughterhouse? That's when you want to put your focus and your attention. It's like, well, I'm not a racist, so I'm probably not going to think along those lines.
Yeah, I've not had that at stalls, but I have had it.
It was quite common in Dublin, that one.
Yeah, I've had it in other.
I've had that in other circumstances. Yeah, telling me that's where I should put my focus.
I've had it in other circumstances that, as well.
The other weird vegan thing that happened to me when I was inside, I think this was at Armley in Leeds, was I used to know this guy, and he's one of these guys who was very institutionalized, and so I suppose he must have probably been 50-ish, and he'd been in and out and in and out and in and out and all that kind of stuff. In fact, there'd been some times when he would go to the cop station if it was in December, and he would say, look, can you put me in jail for Christmas, because I can't stand Christmas, kind of thing. And they'd say, well, no, you haven't done anything. And so he had to go and smash a window or something.
Yeah. There was a guy in this on my second sentence. I was in a prison called Stanford Hill, which is on the Isle of Sheppey, down in Kent. And that once again, that was a semi-open prison. And there was a Scottish guy in there that everyone, of course, called Jock. I call him Scottish guy in prison, Jock. And he was a guy that slept on the streets, homeless guy. And what he used to do, like a lot of them, when it started, the cold weather started, maybe kind of November time, something like that, he'd go and do something to deliberately put in prison, you see. And this is what this guy had done.
Yeah, the idea is to get 6 months, isn't it? So you can do
the idea is, and his plan was he was hoping to get 6 months because that would have carried him over to, like the early spring, you see, like kind of April. Because if you get 6 months, then you'd have to do. You get 6 months, then you'd have to do 4 months.
Yeah, isn't that an utterly flawed and broken system where you get better support as a homeless person from the prison system than you do from the government?
I know, and I think that situation for homeless people is even worse now. But that's what he did. But what happened instead of giving him 6 months, he was given 3 months. So that meant when it kind of got into the January,
the worst part,
February, he was due to be released. You see, and so what he did was he said, "Oh, it's really cold at the moment." And so what he did was because he thought he wanted to, serve that the extra month, to lose remission. So he applied to see the governor, and the governor called him in and said to him, "What do you want to see me for?" And he said, "Well, I've come to see you to just tell you that you're a cunt, you're a bastard, you're a fucker, you're an asshole." And he kind of reeled off this kind of string of insults at the governor, hoping the governor would say, "Right, no remission for you. You'll have an extra month in prison." but the trouble was the governor was wise to what he
Yeah,
was
I know
doing.
what you're trying to do. Out you
Yeah.
go. Yeah.
No, what he did was he just put him in the punishment block just for the few days left of his sentence, and then he got released. But all he would have done was gone out and put another brick for a window and got put back in, probably. You know.
Yeah. Well, this guy I was talking about, he was in and out, and all that, and he always used to have the same breakfast. So he used to have dry toast with peeled plum tomatoes or beans, and he would have porridge made with water and a little bit of sugar, and maybe a bread roll or something. And he was kind of doing the usual, you vegans and all this kind of stuff. And so I said, well, look, you're consuming a vegan-friendly breakfast there, right? And he almost puked when I said that. And he started to retch and everything. And I was thinking, this is really interesting on a social psychology level.
Yeah.
Because he was having the breakfast he's had for years, the same one. And as soon as I labelled it vegan or vegan-friendly, it suddenly became poison.
That's really weird, isn't it? But that really is strange. I mean, I used to on my first sentence when I was in the Verne on Portland, I had like a voracious appetite. I was one of these people that I could eat as much as I wanted and never put on weight. You see, and so what I'd have for breakfast, I'd have beans on toast, and obviously I didn't have any margarine or butter on the toast because it wasn't vegan friendly. So I'd have beans on dry toast, right, and then I'd have 8 slices of bread. You see, so what I'd do is I'd eat the beans off the toast with some of the bread, and then each of the bits of toast, because that had been soaked with all the bean juice, I made a sandwich out of those with other bits of bread. And so I ended up having like beans and counting the toast, 10 bits of bread.
What like a bread sandwich with the bread in the middle?
Bread sandwich, because it was soaked. It was like soaked with beans, and I'd have that every morning. That'd be my breakfast every morning.
Do you know what's supposed to be really good is if you toast 2 pieces of toast, and then you put just a piece of bread in the middle of it. It's supposed to be really nice.
Oh, is it? I'll have to try. Do you put anything on the toast? Do you put marge on the toast, or do you just?
Well, I think you can do, yeah, but I mean, I think it's supposed to be.
Basically, have a toasty, but with the slice of bread in between.
Yeah,
bread toast, bread toasty.
Yeah.
What about having a bit of toast in between 2 slices of bread?
Yeah, so what about it the other way? Yeah, and you just toasted 1 slice in between the sandwich.
Well, that might be worth an experiment as well, I suppose.
Because we used to eat when I went hunt sabbing, we used to kind of exist on crisp sandwiches because, like at the time, I'm talking in the 1970s, and it was much more difficult to get like vegan friendly stuff from the shops. I mean, obviously you could buy the fruit and the veg, but like kind of, your sort of snack food, it was more difficult. So what we do is we go and we get some bread, because not a lot of the bread wasn't even suitable for vegetarians, but there was some bread was okay for vegans, and we knew what that was. And so we go and buy a loaf of bread, get a packet of plain crisps, and we make crisp sandwiches. And there was no marge on the bread because it was really difficult to get, the margarine that was suitable for vegans. I mean, at the time, in those days, most margarine contained animal fat. And so that's what we'd do when we were hungry after, like, we'd been out sabbing. We'd all go somewhere in a place and get the bread and crisps and all sit in the car having crisp sandwiches.
Well, when I was sabbing with Dave Callender, I know how I got my B12 because we used to have this little gas cooker thing, and it had like this massive kind of stew pot thing, and there was farmers' fields around, and so we would go out and kind of grab a few potatoes and carrots and stuff, and just bung them in this stew, and so the stew was kind of going all the time, right? And so it was just a question, you just kept topping it up and everything. But on sabbing days, Dave would toast an entire loaf, and then take it with us. And with also some margarine if it had some, but things like hummus and this kind of stuff, and all kinds of different things, jam and all that. But when it came to consuming it, he would spread this toast with his fingers,
Oh no!
Yeah, but everybody used to just tuck in, and I was thinking, well, that's how you got your B12 in those days.
Well, yeah. I mean, couldn't he have brought a knife? He just forgot to bring a knife, I suppose.
Well, I think sometimes he did, but most of the time, I just have real vivid memories of him using his fingers.
After being stabbing, climbing over gates and
Yeah, out on the grass
dirty.
floors and all this kind of
Oh,
stuff.
blimey, yeah. But I remember a really funny story about when we were, because when I lived in London, I think this was after, when was this? Would have been probably after my second sentence when I got released. I was living in North London, and we used to go and then some of the subs, the group covered quite a big area, and there was some of the subs were from West London, and one day we'd gone out and we were sabbing a hunt somewhere over to the west of London, and on the way back, we were feeling hungry, and so we I think it's on the M4, the services at Heston on the M4 to the west of London, and so we went in the services because we knew that in the motorway services you could have beans on toast. If you had beans on dry toast,
that's like what they call Little Chef. It was called in those days, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was. So beans on. So anyway, there's three of us went in there. We're all scruffy, all been out in the sabbing and all that. And anyway, it was like a kind of. It was. They had like a kind of people waiting on the tables there, which is kind of, a bit unusual for motorway services, but that's how they waited. And we were sat at a table, and this young woman came up, and she said, can I help you? What would you like? And we all ordered like beans on dry toast and a cup of black tea because of course they didn't have the palm milk. See, and then one of the subs said, "Oh, by the way, we're from the Egon Ronay organisation, and we're going round various places to see, the quality of the food." You see, just to let you know.
Like the faulty towers, isn't it?
And anyway, she brought the food, and this guy that had started off this thing about Egon Ronay, he said, "Oh, this looks very nice," and I think this establishment is going to get very high marks when we tell Egon Ronay about the service you provided and how this has been laid out on the plate. It was beans on dry toast. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
anyway,
but it was obviously exquisite beans on toast.
That's right. Anyway,
yeah, we used to have dry toast, beans, and peas. That's how sophisticated we were.
Yeah, all mixed together. Oh, blimey.
Yeah.
Peas on toast.
Peas on toast.
Yeah, peas on toast with beans.
Peas on toast with beans.
No.
But anyway, how that story ended up was, what happened was the woman who's the manager of the place kind of came back from wherever she was, and obviously this young woman who was waiting on the table told her, and we got thrown out. Look, the woman came up and said, "What's this about you telling members of my staff that you're from Egon Ronay? Get out of the place," And she threw us out. But the advantage was we didn't have to pay. We'd eaten the food and we got thrown out, and it saved us paying.
You should have done your thing about forging a kind of letterhead and just send a letter.
A letter from Egon Ronay saying,
I believe you've chucked some of my stuff out.
5-star. Yeah, you've thrown star. I was going to give you a big 5-star rating for the best beans on dry toast in the UK, but now having thrown out my investigators, I'm afraid that you'll only get the 1 star.
And P.S. Try and spruce it up with a bit of peas.
No, I've never had that. That seems a little bit strange. It probably isn't strange, but it does kind of seem.
I'll tell you that I'm not trying peas and beans on toast, but a suggestion you made ages ago, Roger, is something that I do all the time now. Is I put peanut butter on my toast before I put the beans on it.
Oh, that's brilliant! I
don't know about beans, but I reckon tomatoes might be nice. Peanut butter and onion sandwiches are nice, or peanut butter and pickled onion sandwiches are nice. And the other thing that I have a lot, and I probably have it every other day for breakfast, is I have toast with hummus and cooked tomatoes. and that's really nice. That is.
Tell you what makes a good sandwich is olives.
I don't know,
I
Colin.
suppose they would. See, we're talking about food now. We're meant to be talking about prison when we've strayed into the area of food.
Well, we've gone past 10, so I haven't actually been paying all that much attention to if there's been any questions.
Yeah, I've been looking. There's not much. There was a couple of questions about Ronnie, I think.
Not rude ones. Hopefully.
No.
No, I think they were just asking about what you were in jail for, and then you kind of covered some of it anyway.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think of saying any other funny stories about the first sentence. There weren't kind of like a lot.
There was a badger baiter in Hull. I remember.
Yes, there was. Yeah.
Because
he looked like a badger baiter and all, didn't he? He looked just like a badger baiter.
Yeah, and because you used to go down again you went down a floor or two, and then along, and then into like a square. Yeah, you went round in a square to get your stuff, and this guy was always on about how dangerous badgers are, and that's why they need to be killed and this kind of stuff.
Eat babies.
Yeah, and we used to get the Guardian sent in, and so one day I says to him, "Hey, you're right. I just read in the Guardian that some badgers have just invented a thermonuclear weapon." And he goes, "There you are. Then you see they're dangerous."
They are pesky for that kind of thing.
It's just crazy. But I'm just trying to think. I mean, a funny story from nearly all my funny stories of prison are from my final sentence. But I know I remember on my my second sentence. What happened was I was working on the gardens, going around the prison gardens, and I used to. I kind of I sort of saved quite a few pigeons because what they used to do, they used to stop birds from picking various things they had planted. They use this fine cotton. They string out this fine cotton over the plants. You see, to stop the birds from landing, and you'd get it was mainly pigeons would get tangled up in it. Their feet would get tangled up in it. And I was forever untangling this cotton. And what I used to do, I used to go around destroying it all because it's like really lethal, to the birds. This cotton,
it can cut off blood to their feet, can't it?
Yeah. So I used to spend half the time when I was working on the gardens going around and destroying the bloody cotton stuff. But basically, they had a tradition on the garden party. What we used to do, we used to kind of. When we met up and for our tea breaks and that, they had a hut, like a garden hut where we would all sit round. And they had this tradition that if anyone on the garden party was due to be released, the day before they got released, they would throw them in the pond. There was a pond, you see. I mean, you say it's a pond. I don't think there was not sure there was anything in it. It was just this kind of shallow concrete thing with like water in it and that. And they chuck people in the pond, and so I didn't want that to happen to me. I'd seen them do it. I never took part in the throwing in the pond, but I'd seen them do it to other prisoners.
That'd be back at school, isn't it?
Yeah, and so when it was coming up to my release date, I kept really quiet, and they were saying, "When are you getting out, Ronnie?" I said, "Oh, it's a few months. Yeah, I've still got a few months left." You see. See, I thought, and it was coming up. It was like the day before I was due to be released. I think, they're not found out. And then, of course, one of them found out. And they said, "Hey, Ronnie, you had lied to us about when you're going to be released, didn't you, Ronnie? Hey." And I straight away, and what I did was I ran out of the, I ran out the hut and I ran into the pond and sat in the middle of the pond. Because I thought I'd rather run and sit in the middle of the pond than have them throw me in the pond. So that's what I did. And they were all surrounding the pond, and I was just sat there in the middle of it, like But that's really I can't remember really anything else. Particularly amusing from.
Well, they don't have to be amusing. I want to ask you about you mentioned the phone cards because there was no phones when I was, but you were still in prison when I got out, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So when the phone cards came in, that was also when they were introducing things like toilets in the cells, I believe, and then TV. So did you experience all that? Like
I never had a TV. That was later on. I mean, toilets in the cells. What it was that what you had was like different categories of prisons. You had what they called local prisons. So local prisons were like the really old Victorian prisons where you had, if anyone's ever seen like Porridge with Ronnie Barker, ever seen that on the telly? I mean, it's quite old now, isn't it? That one, but that that's filmed in like a traditional Victorian prison. That's what they like, and a lot of the local prisons were like that, where like a lot of the towns had a prison, and they usually kind of in the middle of the town. And what would happen in local prisons would be where you'd get held on remand and wait in trial if you didn't get bail, and it's where you would go to after you were sentenced, right? And then what would happen is you would, from the local prison, you'd be sent to another prison to continue your sentence.
Allocated, it was called.
Yeah, you'd be allocated, and that would either depend on what length of sentence you did and what you're in for. But there's basically, kind of three categories of prison. There's like closed prisons, and the local prisons would be closed prisons. You'd be kind of locked in the cell most of the time. And then there'd be semi-open prisons, which is where you've got a lot of freedom in the grounds of the prison, but there's a big fence or wall around the outside, or open prisons where there was no fence or wall around the outside, depending on, and the ones that were doing shorter times and less serious offences, they'd go to either an open or semi-open prison. But all those prisons, once you went to those prisons, they were all called dispersal prisons that prisoners were dispersed to, really all of those had toilets. All of those you had a toilet in your own cell, or there was like a proper, either that. There was one where
we used to have a toilet block.
Yeah, there wasn't a toilet on the cell, but there was like a toilet. But in the local prisons where you're on a landing and all that, there'd be like what they call a recess, because what you'd have in your cell, you'd either have a potty or you'd have a bucket to go to the toilet in, and this was 3 guys in a cell, and then someone would have to, when it was like it'd be slop out, they'd open the prison door of prison officers and shout slop out, and then someone would have to take the bucket down to the recess, and there'd be like a sort of sluice thing that you poured the bucket into, wasn't there? Yeah. And there were also toilets there with like a half door on the toilet where you could go if you wanted to like have a poo or anything in there, and that was what it was like. And it was whereas
you're in the toilet for slop in.
Yeah, in other prisons, like in Long Lartin, which was the prison I was sent to from Armley, from Leeds, on my 3rd sentence, there wasn't a toilet in the cell, but there was like a proper toilet block where you had. It wasn't like a recess, there were sort of urinals there, and there were, there were the kind of the toilet cubicles like you'd get anywhere really in the outside world. It was a bit like that. But then in Channings Wood, on my final sentence, there was actually a toilet in the cell. I think what they've started doing now is putting toilets in cells. For prisoners.
I never had that. We did have the block. I had a full-time job, just going and turning taps off all the time because they would leave them running full blast. Like 20 taps at once and stuff.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I know.
They'd leave them all night if you let them.
Well, I think they thought that they somehow striking a blow against the prison system by leaving a tap on, when really all they were doing is striking a blow against the environment. You know what I mean? That was. Yeah,
I remember getting into trouble once because I get bored of a room, and so I kind of rearrange rooms quite often, and I rearranged the furniture in the cell once, and a couple of other prisoners saw what I'd done and copied it, right, and then suddenly we get the screws down, going, You got to put it back. You got to put it back. You weren't allowed to not have everything exactly where it's supposed to be.
Yeah, it is a bit like that. It is quite regimented, and there were some prisons where you had to.
I think it's because if they had to storm the cell, They wanted to know what the
where
layout was.
everything was. Yeah,
Yeah.
And there was this thing where you kind of had to, in some prisons, where you had to, when you got up in the morning, you had to sort of make your bed and you know, put your pillow and blankets, and it all had to be absolutely
a bit like
perfect.
the army, yeah.
They're like the army, yeah. There's no point or purpose in that, but that's what they used to do. You know, it wasn't everywhere. It was like some of the, you know, I think some of the local prisons, like one prison I was in on my second sentence was Wandsworth in London, which was a very strict prison because it was a prison for people that had been in, guys that had been in prison before, you see. So it tended to be harsher than a lot of them. And they were like that in Wandsworth. It was all very much like that, you know. But once you got to the dispersal prisons, you know, where you actually served your sentence, it was much more it was much more relaxed. It wasn't as strict as that.
Yes, indeedy.
So yeah, if we haven't got any questions, was there anything either of you wanted to raise?
Well, I think we're at the end of our prison experiences, I think, now. Andy?
Well, I'm just wondering if there's any more if there's any more funny stories. I
think you should have shown a bit more authority with your general statement.
No, I think there wasn't. Was there another one to do with that? I was just thinking. I had a bit of fun with friends of mine when they started allowing us to do phone calls, because people on the outside didn't realise that prisoners could make phone calls. They just thought, no, prisoners aren't allowed to make phone calls. That don't happen. So what I did was I phoned up a friend of mine, an old friend of mine from the Hunt Sabs, who lived down in Kent, just south of London. And I phoned him up. It's Dave Wetton. And he answered the phone. I said, hello, Dave. It's Ronnie. He said, Ronnie, you've been released. Oh, wonderful, you've been released. I said, no. I said, I'm on the run. I've gone over the wall. He said, oh, blimey, oh dear, are you all right? I said, yeah. I said, because I knew I'd been to his house, you said, I knew sort of what it was like around there. I said, Dave, I'm
in the bush outside.
I said, yeah, exactly. I said, I need your help. I said, you know, just a little bit round the corner from you, there's that big bush at the side of it. I said, I'm hid in there. I'm hid there, Dave. I mean, can you help me? He said, I'll come for you now. You know, we'll hide you, you know.
And then like trolling people from prison.
Yeah, and then there was another friend of mine, a woman who was in Hunt Sabs, and I phoned her up and said, oh, Ronnie, have they let you out? I said, no. And it was the time of the Gulf War. And she said,
I've
Ronnie,
been conscripted.
Yeah, well, no. Are you out? I said, yeah. I've been released. She said, where are you? I said, I'm in Kuwait. Where are you in Kuwait? I said because they let us out, provided we volunteered to help to kind of be backup for the army.
Well, Kuwait is a bit away from the Falklands, you know, Ronnie.
Do cooking and make tea and that all for the troops. I said, I'm in the trench here in Kuwait.
Well,
I said, hang on a minute.
To look after the frogs.
I think there's a missile coming over, and she said, oh, you'll be killed. Why did you do that? You should have stayed in prison.
Shitbag, basically.
No, I was a bugger because I took advantage of the fact that people didn't know. I mean, there were one or two rumbled me and say, you know, that's bullshit. So I didn't always get away with it with people.
No, nothing much has changed. Do you remember I said last week about that there was a guy who used to want me to finish his crosswords and that?
Oh, yes, that's it. Yeah.
Well, there's also quite a lot of illiterate people in prison, and so I got the job of reading their letters to them. It's quite embarrassing because, you know, their wives or their partners would write really kind of intimate things, you know.
Yeah.
And so you'd have to read them out. But then they'd also want you to write a letter in reply for them, right?
Oh, right.
Yeah, but the real problem was because, you know what male cons are like. They were so paranoid. They used to always be making threats to their wives or their partners, you know.
Oh, yes.
If you do anything, you know, my Billy will find out and, you know, all this kind of stuff. And I used to have to either not write it down or try and suggest changes, this kind of stuff, because I thought I'm not going to write, I'll make sure you get slashed up good and all this kind of
No,
crap.
oh no. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
well,
terrible.
that's what I was going to ask on that note.
Yeah.
So, any of the times that you were asked to read a letter out, say it was like some bad news, would you get the blame for that?
No, I don't think so. It's just a question of reading it out. But no, I mean, I think they realised you were just relaying what was on the page,
Right,
I
yeah.
mean, I had a sort of similar experience, really, with this guy. There was a guy in prison. Once again, this was when I was in Channings Wood. And basically, I studied languages. And one of the languages I studied was Italian, you see. So I was it was all right with the reading and writing, but it's like the spoken and listening part of it was difficult because there weren't, wasn't really any Italians around. But there was this guy, there was an Italian guy, got put into prison. And what he was a kind of, I think he was in his 50s, this little bald-headed guy, well, rather like me. And basically what had happened was he was done for drug smuggling, because what he was doing, he was smuggling drugs, right? And what he was doing, in order to kind of try and get away with it, he was dressing up as a priest. You see, because he thought, if I'm dressed as a priest, no one's going to suspect me or stop me. So he's dressed as a priest, and he's going through. He got away with it loads of times, going through the customs and all that kind of Heathrow airport and everything. But one day he did get stopped and searched, and they found, I think it was cocaine on him, you see. So he's given, I think he had about 6 years or something. Well, he could hardly speak a word of English. He's given, I think he had about 6 years or something. Well, he could hardly speak a word of English. But you see, he started. I had the same from him. He wanted me. He was a fanatical Catholic, this guy, and he got really upset that the Church of England was allowing women to be like priests or whatever, to be ordained as ministers. He was really angry, and he said to me, in Italian, he said, I want to write to Archbishop of Canterbury, and I'll write a letter in Italian, and I want you to translate it into English, and so I can send it to the Archbishop of Canterbury. And this day I was all complaining about when it's disgraceful that you're allowing women to be priests. It's only men that can do this job, and and my church, the Catholic Church, would never do this, and this is disgraceful, and all that kind of thing. And I got the letter, and this was what he'd written in Italian, and of course he couldn't read English, and I had to write the letter in English. And
congratulations on bringing women.
Exactly. I wrote, I'm so pleased that women have been allowed to be ordained in the church. I wish my church, the Catholic Church, would do the same. And that's what I wrote. And of course, he didn't know what the hell I'd written because he couldn't understand English, and he sent it off to the Archbishop of Canterbury.
Isn't that a great example, though, of still how far away we are from kind of the idea of women being respected properly? That he had no issue with himself impersonating a priest whilst acting as a drugs trafficker, but the idea of a genuine woman priest was absolutely barbaric to him.
Yeah, but he was so prejudiced he'd never impersonate a nun.
It's just the irony in that. I've got no problem being caught impersonating a priest whilst carrying drugs, but a real woman priest, that's disgusting. That's just absurd to me.
When he got caught with the drugs, I wonder if he said, "Oh, the Lord give us." And
that's
Lord
what I was going to say. That's not cocaine. That's
Lord,
baptism powder.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. Something like that. I know. I mean, it was just, and he doesn't know to this day that I did that. He just doesn't know to this day that
He's still waiting for his bigoted reply.
Because there was a few letters, because he wrote to a few religious, leaders. It was always on that theme about how dare you have women,
That was a nice guy.
Yeah, It's all right to smuggle drugs, but women can't be have any positions in the church. That's what.
Yeah, makes sense.
I know, but
Typical misogynistic position. But yeah, I suppose to close the show, and this is completely up to you guys. I did have a suggestion for next week, rather than diving back into necessarily like the 60s and the 70s of the Vegan Society, considering it's such a hot topic again at the moment. How would you feel about doing a kind of going back to the very beginning and discussing how the human element is not something that's being dragged in? It was always there.
Well, I don't mind.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, could be.
I'm just thinking, because of how much talk there is about it at the moment and how much confusion there seems to be around that subject, it would kind of tie in with some of the
It's
things.
a bit weird, though. I mean, you see my new video.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm quoting Donald Watson from 1947. I'm quoting Leslie Cross from 51. I mean, like, how far do you want to go back? I mean, we're only talking about 44 when the thing was started. So.
Yeah, no, totally. And there's, I mean, if you really wanted to get into the kind of nuances of it, there's a couple of things from Henry Salt which obviously massively predate the Vegan Society, going back to like the very early 20th century, where he's talking about like human rights and animal rights being interlinked even then. So yeah, this is a kind of a common across the board idea, that the realization that either these things will be abolished all as one sort of grouping, or it won't happen.
Yeah,
imagine it like. Sorry, I was going to say, imagine it like the kind of tree of supremacy or speciesism or discrimination, however you want to describe it. All you're going to do by kind of focusing on one of these areas is take the branches away. They will grow back. The only way to end all of this forever for everybody is to cut the tree down, and that's all at the same time, or not at all. It doesn't work the way that people want it to work.
Yeah, Watson had a go at salt in 1989 because salt apparently was a real defender of dairy, and he said it was all balderdash and nonsense, this idea of being a vegan.
It's interesting because I don't know whether you've heard about this. I mean, Louise and I covered it in our most recent news show about this scheme by the Vegetarian Society they're kind of asking for funds to do research into kind of creating no-kill dairy.
I remember you saying,
yeah, where they kind of
you mean like ahimsa milk?
Yeah, but you see, kind of, where the milk is produced without killing any animals, but I mean, there's several objections to that, of course, and it's still exploitation, isn't it?
Yeah, but what about the practical thing? What are they going to do with them all?
What they're going to do? Yeah, well, because of course you're going to get male calves produced. So what happens to them? And then
what they'll do is they'll sell them off to one particular farm, who will probably sell them off to one particular farm that will sell them off to somewhere else. And 3 chains down the road, they don't care.
Even the female cows. I mean, because for commercial reasons, although I think a cow can live for up to 20 years. For commercial reasons, they're killed at about 6 years old because that's when their milk yield starts.
No, I think they'd suggest first of all that they would share the milk with the calf, and also they wouldn't take as much to. So, in other words, the kind of idea of a spent cow would not arise until years later because they wouldn't tax their body as much.
No, and they probably could go on longer, but nevertheless, I think the time would come when they're and so. You'd have this huge number of animals, wouldn't you, that would need to be looked after? And how is that viable on a kind of...
It's not.
It's not a viable way of producing...
No, and obviously the problem with that is, once upon a time, maybe even as back when the Vegan Society was founded, kind of these cows probably would be having calves every couple of years because the demand for their milk was nowhere near as high as what it is now. So this idea isn't taken into consideration. There are billions of human beings that still think it's okay to drink the milk of cows.
Yes. Yes,
and
yeah.
they wouldn't fulfill that demand, and we'd soon fall back into the realms of, hang on, we're going to have to breed them at a faster rate. Hang on, we're going to have to kill them because we can't look after them. So yeah, I mean, once upon a time, this is how it was, and
Do you know what happened with this idea that they reckoned that they were going to perfect two things? They were going to perfect the AI system in cows and presumably horses and other beings like that. You know, anyone who's artificially inseminated, and also be able to sex the egg, the eggs, so you wouldn't get male chicks and you wouldn't get male calves. Right? I don't know whether.
So the I don't know about the calf situation, but certainly there are places that claim to have done that, achieved the sexing of chicks, for example, so that they only give birth to female chicks. But I've never seen any actual proof of that. I've just seen claims that
It involves destroying the eggs before they develop.
Yes, yeah,
Doesn't it? Yeah.
But you see, I think there's an ethical objection to that.
Oh yeah.
of course, yeah.
And why? We can all
Yeah,
live perfectly healthily on a
absolutely,
vegan-friendly
absolutely.
diet. So why? It seems that people are going to extraordinary lengths, isn't it, to kind of continue to consume animal
Yeah,
products?
they're bound to do that. I mean, like with the climate thing, they were going to do things like putting nappies on cows and masks and
Yes,
stuff.
but you see, the problem with that, and this is also a problem with this scheme that the Vegetarian Society are hoping to develop. The problem with that is of course the main problem with animal farming isn't the methane emissions from when they fart and burp, and this would also be a problem with the type of dairy farming that the Vegetarian Society are trying to create, is the amount of land it takes up. I mean, if these cows are going to be, they're obviously not going to be, intensively farmed. They're going to be on pasture. They're going to need a hell of a lot of land to exist on, and that is land that, if animals weren't farmed on it, it could go back. It could be rewilded. It could go back to forest. It could and provide habitat for
There'd have to be
free-living beings.
half a sanctuary or a petting zoo or something.
Yeah, and also that would also draw down carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, combat the climate crisis. So basically, any kind of dairy farming, no matter how so-called humane it is, amounts to the oppression of free living beings, because it means that it deprives them of habitat. It deprives them of their, of a means to live, doesn't it?
Joyce O'Sullivan is talking about red calves going to Israel. Does anybody know about that? I don't. Red calves.
I've not heard anything about that. But you see, there's so many things, there's so many holes in the scheme by the vegetarian, and it just seems that people are desperately going to many lengths to try and still continue to consume dairy milk. Well, there's all these wonderful plant milks around that we can drink, isn't there? And even if there wasn't, it would still be wrong to exploit.
It's almost like, to me, vegetarianism is redundant now.
It is redundant, yeah. And whose side is the Vegetarian Society on? I mean, they're continuing to promote the exploitation of fellow animals, aren't they? To the egg industry and the dairy industry. I mean, they actually, it's the same as compassionate will farming, isn't it? Whose side are they on? They're not opposed to farming, of animal farming, are they? Only to certain types of it.
Well, we're back to groups like the RSPCA again. I mean, they're on the side of traditional animal welfare. That's what they're on.
Yeah, but that in turn is on the side of the oppression of other animals, isn't it?
Yeah, because I mean, but the point is, it's a little bit like, well, yeah, but they're doing what they say on the tin, and the outrage is caused by vegans being upset by them because they don't realise who they are, and the same would go for compassionate will farming, because of the. They were once seen as part of the, quote unquote, animal rights movement.
Oh yes, I mean they were very prominent in the like in the 70s, because they were seen as a kind of their way of operating was a bit more slick than existing existing animal protection
Yeah,
organisations.
they were quick to use celebrities, weren't they? Because they used to get Joanna Lumley and Spike
Yeah,
Milligan.
Joanna
involved.
Lumley's always rolled out, isn't she, for all these
Yeah,
things?
that's right. Do you remember Chickens Lib, Ronnie? Chickens Lib, remember that?
I think chickens like now. No, I got a feeling they were abolitionists. Were they abolitionists? They used to do stunts and they used to do disruptions.
It was Claire Druce, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah. They were kind of an early, used direct action, that kind of sort of non-violent direct action stuff. Really way back in the day. I got a feeling they were abolitionists. There's no problem with them. Providing they weren't saying, well, don't eat chickens, eat some other type of animal. If they were like totally, just against.
No, that's One Step for Animals, the one that Matt Ball, Matt Ball co-founded Vegan Outreach, the group Vegan Outreach. Yeah. And then we interviewed them on AR Zone, and they said within 5 years they'd regretted using vegan in the title because they couldn't get as many donations as if they didn't. And then he abandoned animal advocacy completely and started this thing called One Step for Animals, where he said that everybody should not eat anyone else besides chickens.
You only eat chickens.
Yeah, only eat chickens. Yeah, and he even kind of agreed with what's that objectionable chef who died recently, but I think he became quite sympathetic towards the end. The white-haired guy. And,
I kind of think I know what you mean.
Yes, because he once called the animal rights movement Hezbollah, I think. and Matt Ball agreed with him.
I mean, it's just crazy, isn't it? Just crazy. But folks, we're over time now, aren't we? So they're going to have to return next week. I don't know whether there are any more prison stories. I don't think there's really that many.
No, I think we've been released now, Ronnie.
Probably be. Yeah, I think we can be released from the
back out. Yeah.
prison stories.
In fact, considering you've both been good, I'll call the boys off.
Call the boys off. I promise
we're on flow, Ronnie. We're on flow.
Yeah. But on that note, thanks so much as always. Thank you, chat, and take care, everyone. We'll speak to you soon.
Take care. Speak soon. Bye then. Bye.